This conference will now be recorded.
Get going here. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Do you have anyone that would like to make any public comment? Anyone online? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the, I need a motion for the approval of the April 16th meeting minutes.
A motion to approve the April 16th, 2025 meeting minutes. Second.
Great. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and adopt the April 16th meeting minutes. We have a change in the agenda, so we're going to have an update on the MMOF call for projects from Michael Snow.
And Michael, I will make you a presenter if you want to share the spreadsheet you sent out earlier.
Perfect.
So are we all having to join?
And I'm going to start by sharing, hang on a second, I'm getting messages here. Everybody can hear me still?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. All right, so I want to make it brief because, just for the matter of your time, but I thought I would just kind of briefly brief everybody in the room on what we're talking about. So Becky, I'll share a couple of slides that we shared with STAC as a orientation to things. So the legislature having to settle what was a $1.2 billion state budget deficit for state fiscal year 2026 had to make reductions, taking back revenues and reducing program funds to dozens and dozens of programs and affecting every state agency. CDOT's major hit was a reduction in the funds, the existing revenues in this MMOF program. Specifically, it took back 71.4 million of existing unspent funds, and that is a reduction from the local MMOF program. So it's the portion of the program that is allocated to the 15 planning regions. We subsequently, with our finance team and everything, we worked very hard to identify any and all unrealized or previously unallocated funds, kind of scraping the pan for all the bits we could find in order to minimize how much that actually impacted your allocations. The net result of that, as you can see on the screen, is a reduction of 53.2 million from the existing local TPR and MPO allocations of MMOF funds. At the same time, one of the sources of funds to the program is the retail delivery fee, and that those revenues have continually climbed upwards. So some of the actual fee collections were higher than anticipated, and therefore they've also updated the projected revenues for future years. So we're also seeing a little increase of 1.75 million over the next 4 years in the projected amounts. And then, the final numbers, what that looks like at the bottom here are, we had 279 million, and this is state funds only, right? So we are only talking about the state general funding and retail delivery fee revenues in the program. It does not affect the ARPA funds or the state funds that refinanced portions of those ARPA funds. So just so we're clear there. So then we're still looking at over 227, almost $228 million in the program up through FY29. So what does this mean to the statewide program? So I know, nobody likes looking at a whole screen of numbers here, but basically to lay the groundwork for the MPO here and your job now with your own MMOF program is to look at your annual allocations, and statewide on the top line here is what the original allocations were. And you'll see now in the updated allocations, if you focus on FY23, you'll see that statewide there's about 30 million less in that year, and it zeroed out the 24 and 25 allocations. But because North Front Range MPO and most of the other TPRs and MPOs of the state had already made awards of those previous allocations in the line of blue numbers here, the net result means that we're over-programmed in certain years, particularly FY23, and a little bit less in 24 and 25. So the job at hand for the MPO and for the TAC is to examine your existing portfolio of MMOF awards and adjust those awards in order to fall back into constraint with these new allocations. So it would mean looking at your 23, 24, 25 awards and making decisions to either delay them out to your 26 and beyond years, or reducing them or canceling them altogether. That's purely up to you as a region to decide what's to your best benefit. I guess I shouldn't use that word benefit. You know what I mean? Another thing that we're doing differently in the program, so it's clear that we are kind of suffering the consequences of having a very large amount of MMOF funds that remain unspent. So projects that were awarded funds as far back as 2020 and 2022 or early in the program, some of those have still not been implemented and spent. And what all that means is we have an accumulated balance in the fund, and that's exactly why the legislature said we need to take some of that back. Without understanding how hard it is to award projects, get projects ready, get them advertised, get the work done, and get the bills over to CDOT, we know how complicated that is. But ultimately, our lawmakers are just looking at efficient use of funds. And to be frank, a lot of our MMOF projects have been pretty slow to be implemented, and we need to work to do a better job of that. So at the same time, it now gives us a bit of an opportunity. So as we're talking about either postponing, delaying some of the awards on existing projects, we also want to minimize how many projects are affected by those changes. So because we have a large amount of unspent funds in the program that are the result of other projects being delayed, it means that we can also allow projects that are ready to move ahead, but their funds are awarded in a future year. We can permit that as much as is possible based on the balance of funds that we have. So I'm not trying to make this too complicated for everybody, but what that means is that when you sit down to make adjustments and edits to your awards, and you have projects that you don't want impacted, we can support the idea of the projects, let's say that we're going to go to add this summer, and now all of a sudden you have to move their awards out to 27 or something. We can still let those projects move ahead and just pull in their future year's awards into the project. So that'll just be project by project, and that we can decide to do that. And our, the CDOT teams, our region teams, our local agency coordinators and project managers will all sort of be involved with those decisions as we go. But I wanted to let everybody know that, so that that gives you different options when you're looking at which projects awards you're delaying into the future years. Okay, let me shift over to, let's see, So I just shared with Becky an Excel workbook that we're assembling one for each of the regions. You'll see that this table I'm sharing is similar to the statewide one I showed you on a slide, but this is just the North Front Range region. So it shows you exactly what kind of adjustments needs to be made to your program. So you'll see in FY23 that you need to take a little over 2 million of those awards and move them out into your available funds in 27 and beyond. Likewise in 24 and 25. And then if you look all the way over to the very far right, you'll see that overall the entire program is over programmed through FY29 by an amount of 2.26 million. That is the amount of total awards that need to be reduced. So you have some delays, some delay amendments you need to make to some awards, but you also need to find some that are ultimately going to be cut. The second sheet is, the actual project's information, and we're providing, you'll see that there's current level of expenditures, and that kind of gives you a little bit of information about where they are in their implementation. Obviously, projects that are completed, you can't really take away the money, and fund and projects that are already underway, let's say, are partly expended because they're in the middle of the project. Those are also going to be more seriously impacted if you make changes. But this will all support you in deciding which of the projects need to be examined. So I'll leave it there. I'm going to turn it to you for questions.
Ryan. I have a question, Michael. This is Becky.
Okay.
When do you need this from us?
Yeah.
The decision points.
Well, naturally, the urgency is all kind of based on the individual projects. For instance, if you have a project that was currently awarded and was expecting to, let's say, go to add a couple weeks from now, and there's maybe a good chance that the MPO is actually going to be considering a reduction or a delay that delays the funds far enough out that they have to wait, that's cause for a more urgent decision to be made. And in other cases, if they're not making any implementations of any phases of the projects for some time, there's time to take the time you need to deliberate and make those final decisions. We are asking all of the regions to be fully back into compliance with the new allocations by October. But individual project situations that may force or require a more immediate decision, we'll kind of have to coordinate with the region teams and the region coordinators and project managers to they'll advise the MPO of any situations where we need to know of any for any projects that are ready to move ahead, and we'll just work directly with you in those cases. At this moment, I have not had word from any of our project managers that there's any particular situations that they're concerned about, but that's not to say that they don't exist.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Did we want to have a discussion about this, or was
Yeah,
this just,
we can.
Yeah. I guess. Are you looking for us to kind of today start to provide?
No,
Okay.
no. That's why I asked how long is it going to, how far out does he need this? So we could bring this next month to TAC and discuss it And then, Michael, is this something that you, CDOT, are not wanting to be a part of? Would this be something that maybe it would be good to have you a part of, or would this be something we should have Region 4 a part of?
I think it's a little bit of both. It's completely up to you to make the decisions, but I think you won't be fully armed with the right information to make the best decisions without the input of Region 4's planning and project managers. And some from me, because I can kind of get some status information on, say, the transit projects and that sort of thing. So I think that's information that we can provide you, and we are planning to do that. That is, more status, right? I've put the expenditures in that list already, but what's more important beyond that is to say, well, which projects we're planning to go to add when, and for what portions of funding. And so CDOT's various project managers can kind of assemble some of that information, and we'll get it back to you, sometime in the next couple of weeks. I can't. It's hard for me to commit when that'll come together, but we'll provide additional information for you. And then if you're asking for some of CDOT's, subject matter experts to provide some recommendations, let us know that. We'll be happy to help you work through this however you'd like.
We'll just mention, we have one project that's going to add, I think this week, that's on that list. Is that something, should we pause and hold?
Did you hear the question, Michael?
Yeah, which project are we talking about?
The Loveland sidewalk project. It's
yeah, right here.
yes.
Okay, so that's an award of 2020 funds.
Yes.
And that's it, right?
Yes.
So I wouldn't worry too much about that. You don't have to amend any 2020 funds.
Okay.
I would say if you chose to, right, like you can, reduce and cancel 2020 awards and reallocate 2020 funds to other projects. But since 2020 doesn't require any reductions, this project should probably not be affected.
Okay. Thank you. Michael,
Shania Porter with the Town of Search. Just bear with me here. I'm not an engineer, I'm a planner. So my planner brain is what I heard you say and how I relay it back to our management and council is CDOT is telling us we have to get rid of projects and we could be on the chopping block. I don't want to relay that way, but that's what I heard you say. But I think what would be better, and I don't know if the group feels this way, but if we get a memo from you that's like 2 paragraphs that sums up what you just told us with all these dollars and cents so that I can relay that to our powers that be so they understand it was over allocated and now what we've allocated to people, now we have to take away. That's, I don't know, my eyes bulged out of my head when you started talking. So that was really kind of a punch.
Yeah.
So I think we need something. I know I do. I need to have something to take back to my town manager and my elected so they can see what you just told us in writing, not all this in Excel spreadsheets.
Okay. Yeah, can do. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to be clear, it's not CDOT taking the funds away; it's the state legislature that took the funds away, and now CDOT has to. Yeah,
if you can clarify that, because you're the unfortunately, Michael, you're the bearer of bad news. You're like the Grinch who stole Christmas or something.
But yeah, so we can talk about this at the meeting in June, the TAC meeting, and then we can take it to the July council meeting because I'd like you guys to sort of workshop through this since you're the project's implementers, and that way we can take some sort of coherent list of things that this is what we're thinking about to the July council meeting. And then, I'll reach out to you, Michael, and then I guess I'll start with Josie and then go from there for the folks from Region 4 for next month's meeting, if that works for you guys.
Yeah.
And not to cut anybody else off, but if there are any questions, go ahead.
Would it be possible for you to share the presentation that you showed us as well as that spreadsheet?
So
Yeah,
I have the spreadsheet, but yeah, the presentation.
Yeah, the presentation is the stack presentation. I think I shared that, or was that? Yeah, I think that was shared out, Becky. If you don't see it in your inbox, I believe Aaron followed up after the stack meeting with that.
Okay, I have to go back
Okay.
and look, but yeah, I can. Yeah, if I have it, then I'll send it. I'll share it out. Both
Okay.
of them. So yeah, and I'll include you on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Is there anybody online? I don't think so.
Any hands on? All right.
Any other questions? Or
I don't think we have any more questions in the room, and I'm not seeing any more hands. Does anyone online have any questions? I see some tears in the room, but
no, gosh.
no questions. Okay.
Sorry.
No, thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
I'll bring donuts next time.
Oh. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.
All right. And then we'll go ahead and move on to the Regional Air Quality Council, the RAC update, and we have Tom.
No.
Oh, Tom is not
No.
here.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so no RAC update.
No.
How about the APCD update with Brendan?
He has jury duty and is not able to. He didn't know if he was going to make it, but I don't see him on. So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will just cruise right through to our first presentation. The Colorado Energy Office Impact Accelerator Grant Program.
I see Carlos is online.
Can you hear me? Hello. Good afternoon.
Yes.
Let me make you the presenter, and then we can go from there.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. You should be able to
Great.
share now.
There you go. Thank you.
Mhm.
Can you all see my screen in presentation mode? Just checking.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for this space. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carlos Tamayo. I'm one of the program managers at the Colorado Energy Office. We also have Russ Sands, director of the local government team at CEO. Russ, not sure you wanted to say any remarks before I start.
I just really appreciate you having us. Thanks for making the time, and I'll hang around and work through any questions you guys might have at the end, and Carlos and I can tag team those. So go ahead, take it away, Carlos.
Thank you, sir. So, yes, I was saying today we're presenting the Local Impact Accelerator, which is a program that will provide $50 million to support local government policy adoption in 4 main sectors, which are buildings, transportation, land use, and waste. The main goal of this program is to build local resilience and reduce emissions through transformative policy adoption that extends beyond state requirements. In terms of a little bit of overview on the program, who's going to be eligible for the program is going to be local governments such as cities and counties, and cohorts, which should be led by cities and counties as well as Colorado's 2 federally recognized tribes. There are 2 ways to apply. The first one, and the simplest one, is the policy adoption funding, and the second one is policy adoption with project funding, and we can get into details on that. With the note that applicants cannot apply for project funding alone. In terms of the funding amounts, we are estimating for policy that the suggested maximum is going to be 200,000, and for the project side of things, the maximum, at least that we're suggesting, is $1 million. Of course, CEO will consider requests that exceed these amounts, and applicants will be asked to submit a constrained, standard, and vision budget, which is basically explained here. For the constraint, we're looking at perhaps smaller jurisdictions, but not just smaller. Could be any size that applies for this funding. The same with the standard. Could be depending on size or depending on project or what they want to do. In the vision, which is $5 million, up to $5 million, which Again, could be, you know, a larger jurisdiction, could be a smaller jurisdiction. It'll come down to what kind of project the jurisdiction or jurisdictions want to present or submit.
Carlos, can I jump in on that one real quick?
Yeah, please. Mhm.
So I think the idea, if you just go back one click, the idea here is that the standard application we think might be up to $2 million, and for each application we're actually going to ask for 3 budgets. Some of that is because we don't really have a great sense of across these 2 rounds how many people are going to come in and how much each group is going to come in for. And so rather than us, making decisions in the wake of getting applications around what dollar amount might get awarded, it's easier for us to know where we could kind of adjust those funding levels if we get a lot of applications, or if we get a few applications, maybe we can give people the most they want. So again, smaller jurisdictions may need a lower amount, but the basic is that up to $2 million is the standard. The constrained budget is 25% of that, and then the vision budget is anything over 2 million up to 5 million as a kind of upper end cap.
Yep. Thank you for the clarification, Russ. So in terms of eligible policies, and on the left-hand side of the slide here, you see the two-pager that Russ, if you're able to share, I'd appreciate that. That basically has all the information, all the main information on the program. When it comes to the sectors, as I mentioned, we have buildings, land use, and transportation. And for buildings, for example, we're looking at policies that promote building energy codes that exceed the forthcoming Model Low Energy and Carbon Code that's going to be due statewide by July next year. In terms of land use, we're looking at policies that promote compact housing, parking management, EV charging, for example, renewable energy, and to discourage greenfield development. When it comes to transportation, we're looking at policies that encourage high-quality active transportation infrastructure, transit prioritization, transportation demand management, and fee-based vehicle registration incentives. Lastly, for waste, looking at policies that increase waste diversion, promote reuse, and help convert refuse trucks to zero-emission vehicles. If you want to access this handout, is available on the link on the bottom of this slide. In the same fashion, when we're talking about eligible costs for policy and project, for policy, for example, we're looking at stakeholder outreach, education, and facilitation. It could be allocated to consultant support for technical analysis or policy development. It could be studies that inform policy adoption, or it could be small pilot projects, with the caveat that generally projects that include construction, hiring staff, and long timelines will be less competitive, and we can get into those details in the Q&A part. For project funding, again, looking at related equipment purchases, rebate programs, or reduced fee programs. Could be consultant support for project implementation, studies that proceed, or advanced project implementation. Could be larger pilot projects with the same note that if they include construction, hiring staff, and long timelines, this could be less competitive. And in general, could be other incentives or similar efforts to increase policy impact. And you can see the same link for the two-pager here. So what is the application process? First step is to submit a letter of intent, or LOI, which includes the policy or policies that you will adopt, a policy funding request, and any additional project dollars. So in the next step, if you're encouraged to submit your full application, the contracts for award applications are expected in Q1, Q2 of next year. And lastly, have a 2026 kickoff meeting with the Colorado Energy Office once you've been awarded with your contract, and this will allow you to advance your policy and start your project thereafter. So I'm going to show you two timelines here. The one you're looking at right now is for round one. For the LOI, beginning June 16th through August 1st. That's going to be the period to submit your LOI. As mentioned, if you're encouraged to submit your full application, it'll be between October 1st and November 5th. And on December 15th, awards will be announced. Again, this is for round one. For round two, in the same fashion, for the LOI part, looking at October 1st through November 17th. For the full application, between January 16th and February 18th, and the awards will be announced on April 6th, 2026, of course. Some important information to take into consideration. The program guidance and FAQs will be published online on June 2nd, 2025. As I mentioned before, round one opens on June 16th. In some upcoming events, there's going to be a launch webinar on June 17th and a Q&A session webinar on July 1st. And there's a sign-up form that you can access. So with that, this was just a brief overview on the program. Happy to answer any questions between Russ and myself. Unless, Russ, do you want to add anything that I might have missed?
No, I think that was great. Thanks so much.
Of course.
Any questions? How sure are you on the awards? No, I'm just kidding. Any questions online for our presenters? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation.
Could you send this presentation to me? This is Becky, and then I can send it out to the group.
I'll make sure you get it. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, our favorite topic. So Becky's going to lead us in a conversation around the 10-year prioritization list.
Yes. So if Jerome, can you share the last page of the handout packet? All right. And she's not on, I don't think, but Michaela, I had her help with averaging and getting all these scores together that everyone sent. I got 9 scoring sheets, completed scoring sheets in. So thank you to everyone who took the time to do that. And so what this shows is the averaged total scores for each of the projects that were you guys were asked to score. And Jerome has a gigantic Excel work document that has everybody's spreadsheets in there. So if anyone wants to look at something in particular, we can pull that up if you want to. Otherwise, we just figured this would be what everyone was most interested in seeing. And when I looked at the way that these fell out, it kind of made sense to me. It's sort of where we've been talking. So it's like Weld County Road 17 and 34 is the top project, would make sense given the discussions that we've had of the last, I've lost count how many months. It's been that we've been talking about this, and then I-25 and 14, that was the highest scoring project or highest voted project at the workshop in January. So that also makes sense. Your project was 3rd. So there you go. But then so the rest, sort of, you can see where they fall. So there's definite top number 1 project by a long, quite a large amount. And then there's a bunch that cluster sort of in the middle. And then there's a couple at the bottom that are just there at the bottom. There's a couple that have the exact same score. But I don't know that really matters too much. But I didn't know if anyone saw anything and was like, that makes 0 sense to me. That doesn't seem right. If anyone had any questions or heartburn or what have you. So
I have just a couple of questions, and however it falls out, I'm fine with however the project's ranked. I guess one of the main questions I had is, as we were answering some of the questions on behalf of other communities, we elected not to answer some of the questions and just let the community scores for things that we didn't know about other communities. We thought that information would maybe be shared when we asked or posed the question to you. Should communities fill out their own categories for things that only the community would know? We thought maybe you would share that with the rest of the group. But I don't know if I would love to see the scoring sheet, because I would love to see how things got scored. We also noticed there was an error in the safety data for the 287 and 34 intersection. They had LOSs from CDOT. Okay. And there's 2 intersections there. One has LOSS 4 in our data, LOSS 3 in CDOT's data, and the spreadsheet said LOSS 2. And so we would like to at least have that looked at. And we changed it in our scoring, but I don't know if that change, we put notes in there, and I don't know that that change made it to anyone else's scoring, but something that we would like to look at.
So, and I understand like some of these things coming in, but that was like, if there were errors that people discovered, like that would have been really good to have like before May 9th, which is when I had asked for all of those questions. I don't know what to do about the CDOT data. That I don't
I
really
can
know.
talk to
That
Katrina
was,
about it. I think it's
yeah.
because it's two intersections. If you take one and not the other, and where we had pedestrian fatality and some other very serious injury crashes was the other intersection, and that's where the biggest benefits of our project will lie. So I can talk to Katrina, and if she would bless or sanction a change in that score based on her evaluation of that data, would that be something you'd willingly
So
change?
my question is, are TAC members hoping that what's on this sheet here, the way that these have fallen out and scored, are you hoping that that influences the Region 4 list? Or are you just wanting it for our region, this is our list, and it's independent of the CDOT list?
I don't actually, however it falls out, I just don't want that project to get put with a score that doesn't represent what we're seeing in the data.
So if this is our own list independent of the CDOT Region 4 list, then yes, we can continue on doing that. I would say if you want to try and, if you want this to influence the Region 4 list, I don't know that that's
And I think
gonna
she
happen.
knows the problem that in this intersection shows up in all of a number of her studies. I think she will understand it just from looking at the data. I think she'll understand where we're coming from with that one, and I'm not worried about that. The way it was put in the spreadsheet, I think it's a misrepresentation of what the actual problem is there.
Okay. So if you want to talk to her about that.
Yeah, and I'm more for our region and the list going forward. If these scores are going to live on.
And I would just ask her, when you do contact her, if there are any other, if she could just look at the other ones too, just to make sure. So we get that.
And this one's weird because there's two intersections. So if you pick one or the other, and
You have the same thing happen on Highland Meadows to 392 from Highland Meadows to Colorado Parkway. When you look at the level of service data, I think it shows on the CDOT. They showed it 3 for a segment and 4 for the intersection or something. But when you actually go to the CDOT website and look at it yourself, they don't even have the segment scored there. So we were confused too, because we scored it as a 4, which was similar to what our recent studies have showed.
And are you fixing the intersection with your project? Yeah.
So both sides,
Yeah.
And so, and that was one of our concerns. We noticed that the data up front wasn't included and it was for that particular project. It kind of got mixed up with another project in Windsor. And so I sent out that last minute effort to kind of let everybody know, like, please score this according to the updated data. And so, because also our volume to capacity ratio was off too. Our current studies show that it's over 1 versus what CDOT shows, like a 0.89. And that makes a big difference in scoring. Granted, it's not going to really,
Well, and I think the CDOT effort, I'll be honest, I think they kind of know what they're going to fund already, maybe, and I'm not super worried about influencing that. But I think for us as a region, we have, and I would love to see us do a GIS something or have better tools to be able to identify where our problems are, be able to identify where our intersections are over capacity. And we should be building a GIS tool or something that sort of is a tool that we can use in calls for projects that help us compare the problems across the region so we have a better idea of where our problems exist. So I'm not super worried about, I think they know where their problems are and they've got a good handle on it for the CDOT region. But the longer term conversation is how do we get accurate, good information we can count on in calls for projects that kind of put projects in an apples to apples scenario where we're looking at data across the region.
Beyond just CDOT roads.
well, the reason why that's, I think it's very important too, is to show, like, if you look at the list, it surprised me that some of the 392 projects trump some of the 34 projects.
I was shocked by that.
And so that Highland Meadows portion there could be actually up higher depending on how people scored it, which can make a statement to everybody like, hey, 392 should be a priority corridor perhaps if it's ranking so high.
Yeah, if it's ranking high. And I want to see the spreadsheet because I want to understand why. I also think it's sort of Fort Collins what's left to build out. I mean, right, you've got some stuff to the north, but really this is the area that,
Prospect in this.
yeah, and the density that you guys have approved with your most recent land use code update, that probably will develop in a more dense way, right? And so I don't know exactly what it is in that area, but it probably is something we should get on the radar. And I don't know if you guys have any projects planned in that area or have a desire to.
There's development as well as 392 and Carpenter, or excuse me, Timberline. So yeah.
So yeah, if
Nicole?
yeah, go ahead.
Hi,
Yes.
this is Victoria. I just wanted to say to your earlier comment about having, more comprehensive and complete data to really understand our challenges as a region. I would also add that we should be thinking, future focused and really, like, I would advocate for some planning processes to really consider where, how our region is growing, what the future needs might be, and how we want to address those challenges. So I think I love the idea of being more, having our region really drive some of these rankings or prioritizations. And I would just also ask that we're not only trying to be reactive, but we're also looking ahead as well.
I agree. And I think the land use piece and the model piece, I mean, the region better than anyone can kind of look across and provide some data in ways. And I know that's, it's a tall order. That would be a large piece of work, but I feel like we do these exercises and we spend a ton of time trying to wrangle this stuff. But if we had a set of data that we updated regularly and it was set up to do something like this, sort of at a glance, and we had an idea of where our problems were, we'd be better suited when these things come up.
So we are in the process of updating our land use allocation model. We're working with Urban Sim, that's our consultant group that we have for the land use model. They're updating it, or they have updated our model, our area with the 2020 census data, and they're just calibrating it and they're getting it to work with our travel demand model that we had for the 2050 plan. So that's in process and they're getting that to work. And then Michaela's going to be given access and she's going to be able to get in there and do stuff with it. So that's not something we can do real quick. It's going to take at least a couple of months for something like that to be able to be done and run and calibrated and all of that good stuff. If this is something that you guys are wanting us to develop, we can do that. We just need to know what data points, and it can't be everything because not everybody has everything. So we'd be looking to you guys to give us some of that data, to CDOT to give us other data, and then we have some already. So it would need to be something that everyone can provide so we can do the apples to apples.
I almost think the tool you created for the grant call for project, keeping that updated and keeping that alive with some of the model data, to Victoria's point about future, kind of where are we growing, what do we need to be planning for, but having a GIS tool like that has all the different layers. And I think, Michaela's working on the safety data. It feels like we're getting to a point where we can plug that in. And so I feel like the next time we go through this, hopefully we won't feel so,
And given everything that's going on, I had intended for us to have a call for projects for the federal funds this fall. I don't think that's going to happen. So just given how everything is. Yeah. So that could possibly be next year. So we have time to be able to develop something. And we'll kick off. I'm going to put out an RFP for our travel demand model update. And so part of that, for those of you who've been through at least one of these, is the first thing we do is we have our model steering team and we talk about developments and we talk about, housing and jobs, and we have our control totals from DOLA and we look at where those things are going. And, sometimes they show up in weird places when we run the land use model, like at the Loveland Fort Collins Airport. It said there were like 50,000 people going to live there. And it was like, no, that's wrong. So, making sure that everything shows up where it's supposed to. So, and we will invite all of you. So don't worry.
Katrina, if you want to.
Oh, yes.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Katrina, I don't know if you caught that, but we were talking about the Lincoln and Cleveland intersections. It looks like just the Cleveland and 34 intersection, and not the Lincoln and 34 intersection, that LOSS score was included for just one of the intersections. I don't know if you can hear us.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd have to go back and look, but it's something that I can pull for both intersections if you need it.
And then the 392 Highland Meadows, there's an intersection project as part of that, and it looks like the LOSS just for the corridor was included, not the intersection.
Right, the intersection on either end are both level service 4s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So those were 2 scores that we thought might need to be looked at.
Okay, yeah, I can pull that information.
Thank you. Any other questions for Becky?
So, well, I have a question. So right now, this is on the council agenda as a discussion item after Heather talks about the Region 4 list. Let me back up. On May 30th, so next Friday, there will be a second 4 TPR chair meeting to talk about projects for the full Region 4 list that they want to submit. So then Heather will come to the June council meeting to talk through that. So that'll be a discussion item with the council members. Because as we know, we're just a part of Region 4. There's 3 other TPRs. So she will talk through the projects that are on that list for our area and just talking that through with council. And then right now I have this after that as the discussion item. If we do not think this is ready to go to council and there's more work that we want to do as a TAC, happy to take it off and we can talk about it in July or August or whenever we feel ready to talk about it. If this first blush at this list, it just doesn't feel right to you guys, we can go back and do some more.
I feel like a lot of the conversations we've had, it's not making it to the list. So we have conversations, none of it makes it into the spreadsheet or the list. So I would like to work on having better tools to plan in the future rather than beating this dead horse. And maybe that's not the right, but we talked about the Harmony and I-25 project being a plan, not the full interchange project. We've talked about that multiple times. We've talked about the 131st not being a regional, corridor at all, but the transit portion of that never made it onto the list. So I don't know if more conversation is going to help this get better.
So, and I did get your email, and the reason they're included as they are like this is because this is how they were voted on in January in the workshop. And I didn't want to make any changes. If we were going to include the voting that was done at the workshop, it had to be apples to apples with these projects for that piece. So trying to keep everything consistent, which yes, I-25 and Harmony is definitely going to be a study first before it's anything else. 131st, that's TBD what that would look like since it's such a brand new project for us as a TAC to have heard about. And I understand that, but there's, I can't.
So are these scores
changing
the new scores that you just submitted to you, or is this?
Yes,
older?
this is average.
Okay.
Average for everybody.
I'm still overwhelmed when I was trying to do that. It took forever. I had my 3 screens up, and I still had another screen over here because it's such a big sheet. And then I was trying to flip flop between each attachment, and then just still trying to understand. I don't even know if it behooves us to do a group where we're all here and it's a hand-holding exercise, but it might. I know I would benefit a
scoring workshop or
a
something.
scoring workshop.
Well,
We did it
hearing
all
what other
together.
communities have for economic development or what you have for regional
Bridges.
Yeah, like the connections between. I do think that was an after action kind of lesson from this was a scoring workshop. An hour on the phone, as painful as it may be, just walking through that might have been the best way.
Just in person, where somebody's got it on the screen, and it's one big screen, and it's all there, and then it allows me to figure out how am I scoring this. Like I just felt like I was going and grabbing the information that was on other Excel sheets, and then putting a score based on what I thought I was seeing over there. And when I submitted it back to Becky, I'm like, I did it best of my ability. I don't even know how I did this. And I'm looking at how I got scored versus what I submitted, and I maybe hit 50% on what I'm seeing here. So I feel like I'm failing the group because maybe I'm not understanding how to score.
There isn't a right or wrong way to score. I will say that. I don't want everyone voting the same way just because.
But it's a data-driven approach.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I didn't have a lot of the data. So I was texting a couple people and I was like, how am I supposed to know if you guys are improving? I don't know. How do I know if you have your right away? So I just went 5s all the way down. So, well, or I didn't. I went zeros all the way down, and I just was consistent because I was like, I don't have this. And I should have totally asked sooner. However, that being said, I made a very bad assumption thinking that the data requested would have been stuff that I could provide. So I did it on Sunday night watching golf.
Sorry, this was. Sorry, I was just going to say we could consider, sharing this with some of our, almost like lessons learned, and letting the council decide what they want to do. I also agree. I think we have talked about this a lot. I think it's been kind of a moving target, and I love just what Nicole was saying about how can we do this better next time, or how can we be more like come together and spend more time, I think, on like really what do we need to do as a region? What do we envision, and what are some different scenarios we could consider, right? So it's less about like comparing apples to oranges projects and more about like the big picture. I would really love to spend more time in those conversations.
I think that's where we'll be most effective, right? And especially doing this under this timeline, I think that was the risk all along. And TDOT has a good idea of what their problems are and their needs are across the region. So I'm not sure this is going to help them a ton, right? I think it does, where I imagine they're planning on spending money at 34 and 17, maybe not, I have no idea, but being a top, it's probably one of the most ready projects too. So that makes sense as well. So I guess I'm worried about handing this to the commission and having I-25 in Harmony as our third project, and it doesn't have a plan, or I guess I'm worried we might put a memo with it or something to say here's some.
It was listed as a study. I think it's important for them to see that the study is important to do.
Yeah,
we didn't even make the minutes in the I-25 North Coalition, even though it was stated by council. So the fact that we are trying to do a study and a plan, if you guys don't want to have plans on there, then we can kick off both of them. But
and this is just this was just to make sure we just made it be roadway name score, so it fit on one sheet as opposed to like the giant thing. So this took away. This doesn't have like the project description, which we can change this, but we figured you guys have seen this so much. Probably knew what these were.
But at the same time, with the data that was presented, which we did have good traffic and VC ratios, I think it's important to note that we do really need to do a study and to convince CDOT that does need to stay up on our list. We're not trying to jump the construction game, but project has merit.
Well, and it's a good project. I think that's what we're wanting is projects that have the data.
So I would be hesitant. I would like to classify it as a study or, as a planning document effort. But I think having it up high on the list and keeping its attention with those guys gives them, as we move through this process in future years, like, hey, this is coming. Be ready.
Yeah, and you have to do the study first. Anyway.
You have
to.
And this goes back to the comment I made a long time ago, and I keep going back to it, but if you're not at the table when these discussions are happening, you lose. So for Timothy being at the table right now, I will wholeheartedly agree that affects severance as well.
And we're going to bring you in your study.
I know.
So you know.
But what I'm getting at with my comment almost probably a year ago is it's almost please don't hate me for it. It is a popularity contest, and unless you're at the table and you're advocating for your projects, they may or may not stay on. And that's why I go back to, and I think I saw a couple of heads nod, a workshop that everybody's required to be there, and we all understand it, and we score it together during those 2 to 3 hours that somebody's up there explaining it. And if you've got a project and you need to provide additional information for it so the group understands how to score, I think there's a fairness in that. Because not everybody can be at every meeting, but if we know this is happening, believe me, I'm going to clear my agenda, and I'm going to be at that meeting when it's a workshop and we're all scoring. So just something to take forward for next year, especially in lieu of just hearing CDOT and Michael Snow saying, oh, by the way, you got to slash budgets. So, I mean,
so I will,
fairness.
One more thing. It doesn't necessarily make sense to me in terms of the 34 Larimer County Road 3 to Centerra Parkway, in terms of some of the criteria that we had, that if you think about 392, as much as it's a different, though that is a very busy section of road with crashes and for those not to be that, for 392 to score higher, I just would love to see what the scores were and what the kind of how that panned out, because it doesn't necessarily make sense to me from afar, so how some of these came out. But I also don't want to, I can let it go and I can move on into the better future where we can look at it and we can make sure we've got good data and some sort of model in the future that we're using. But
So what do we want to do with this now? Are we wanting to have this scoring workshop Shane's talking about before it goes to council? Are we wanting to give this to council? What is the next
I
step
would love
for
to do a
this?
scoring workshop if we still have time, but I thought
There isn't
yeah.
it that if we're not trying to influence the CDOT Region 4 list, you guys have time.
I think it'd be worthwhile for us to take a moment and look at the data that we've collected, and also just to see where are the errors in our data, and if, are these good sets of data to be using in the future when we do some sort of GIS.
And are we scoring consistently?
Are we scoring consistently? I mean, yeah.
I still feel like I'm doing the best that I can. I just feel like I'm going back and forth between the data that was provided and finding the information for that project. And then sometimes just hoping I'm putting in the right number.
Yeah.
And I hate to do that. That's so.
Maybe a workshop would be, if that's not too much trouble. And I think a Teams workshop like you did,
so everyone can see the same thing.
That was great. And I think we could all kind of pop in as we had availability and be there. And
Do we know when-ish? For those of, this is what I was going to do on a roundtable. For those of you that do not know, Paul is leaving. His last day at the NPO is Friday, and I am going to be taking over as acting executive director until a permanent one is appointed. So I'm going to be doing both jobs. So the further out this is, the little easier that is on me, but, and my schedule, but when are you guys thinking of wanting to do this?
Sorry, not to like throw
Go
a
ahead.
wrench, but I'm just wondering, I guess where I'm coming from is, do we want to keep like working with this, or when we do come together and spend some time like talking in a workshop, like I would request that we really do step back and take more of like a big picture planning approach to our priorities. And so I'm not trying to like delay this or throw a wrench in it, but I don't know how much we keep going over the scoring versus like try a different process.
Maybe a third way that kind of takes a little bit of both is update the projects that we know the scoring might be wonky, and then finish this list, and then have the effort to have a planning, data-driven approach to project selection and prioritization.
And that sounds good to me. I don't want to lose. I don't want to like go through this, work on this list, keep going, and then like forget about, the lessons learned, I guess. So I like what you just said.
yeah, I agree. And Victoria, I've wrestled with this whole time. Like we've been racing to a deadline. I'm like, we're gonna get there really fast, but not have something that's worth standing behind, right? When we get there really fast. So I agree. At some point, we have to just put it down and take a fresh look at the data so we can get ahead of the next time.
But you're not gonna like what I
Go
say.
right ahead.
The trepidation that I have of 392 showing up in front of a slew of 34 projects, I think would potentially, cause a political issue at planning council, that if we can correct some of the scoring and it shows a more vetted, calibrated list that feels better, I think that's something we ought to try to get to council.
And if you need support too, I think one of the things we can help support this effort too. So I know the NPO is short-staffed right now. So if you obviously we want to make sure you have representation and it's an appropriate process, but we certainly can help facilitate or set up or do whatever you need, as member agencies. I think we can.
So how would we do what you're suggesting, Dana?
What it comes down to is the level of service safety. That had such a high weight when I looked at it, that's how those projects are jumping up. They both have LOS scores.
I agree. I think if we could get it for those two projects we talked about, I think that may at least push them further up the list, which then I think is more representative, right? It just is correct. More correct.
And there are some now, right, that like if you use current years of data, we're seeing, the Larimer County Road, the 34 on the east side of I-25 right there, right at I-25, we're starting to see those pop up too. And so,
and that might just need more of the discussion is like, you're just going down the project list and be like, this is the data we're using. Do we all agree? Yes or no? And then the score is what the score is. We don't need us each to fill out our own spreadsheet with it. It's just, and then ideally, some of the other questions like, do you have your right of way acquired? Maybe that could be provided by the project owner.
Yeah,
And we could just trust that that's,
no.
trust that that's,
Yeah, I
Trust
think we
that-
can answer that question right here, right now. There's none of these projects have all their right of way,
Mm-mm.
right? That it shouldn't have even.
Does 34 and 17, that would be the only one that may.
I think I left them all blank because
Yeah.
how would I know that?
If they need right away.
They need
Hey,
right.
guys.
so planning projects don't
Fox.
need right away.
Yeah,
you
the
guys
plan.
hear me?
There's two.
There's
There's
some
two.
projects.
There's two.
Just not enough information.
Yeah.
Sorry, who's speaking?
This is Gina Fox. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
I just had a quick question. When you guys score, and this is genuinely, I don't know, do you have like a criteria matrix that you've all agreed upon, and this is how you're scoring your priority projects?
Yes, we do have scoring
Is it-
criteria and a scoring sheet that lists what does each criteria mean and what are the points assigned to that.
What was hard to know is I don't know about all the communities, kind of what some of the criteria we were scoring on. We just didn't have information about like economic partnerships with developers or things like that for different communities. So that was something that we thought maybe each source community could put the data in for their own community. But I think a scoring workshop between when would you need it for the planning council packet? When would you need final?
If you wanted to go to June, I need it next Tuesday.
So
If you wanted to go in July, we got because July meeting is moved a week because of July 4th.
and Heather's coming in June. We talked about
Heather's coming in June.
So could this Friday, could we do an hour Friday morning or something? Have
No,
it
because
now?
that's when the safety dashboard workshop is.
Can we not do that Friday and take that time and do?
No, she's no. Saying no.
But that one, I mean, I think that is, yeah.
If you wanted to go in June, but is there a need for it to go in June? Is my question.
I think the planning council's been asking for this for a long time, and I would hate for Heather to be there having the conversation and us not to have done our homework and had it ready. And I don't think this is ready for prime time. I also can release that and just let it go and take it and be done. That might be.
I don't think they're doing a service to planning council by doing that.
I would be sad if this was what we turned in. I would
We
be
had-
disappointed.
And then kind of losing our trust in us as far as data, because if there's poor data and poor numbers and something seems wonky, we have very smart planning commission council members, they're going to call it out.
Yeah.
We don't want to
rely
do
on
that.
us as technical folks to provide them the best information we can.
Yeah.
Could we provide a shared spreadsheet and have each community fill out their own like main columns, and then we can talk about the ones that are, the LOS? Because again, the biggest one you called out right there is the LOSS and the VC. Those are the ones we really need to focus on. But honestly, everything else should be filled out by the community. Could it just be a shared spreadsheet?
If you find a time that works for you and people just have to either be there or make time, send a representative. If you find a time between now and, Monday,
Nobody's working Monday.
Yeah. Right. I mean, if there's a time on Friday that you can do an hour Teams meeting,
We could do it right after the dashboard. We could go with
Then that would then have to go out and get
Yeah.
for a council meeting.
which is what? So this
Isn't the
Second or
intent of this
third.
meeting, though, is not just to get another Excel spreadsheet and then just sit there aside? Isn't the thought that we would actually
Discuss each one.
Yeah. So I don't see the value in another Excel spreadsheet. That's just, I find more value in the conversation around the table with each project so we can understand how
And
to
that's what
better
goes
score.
okay. June 4th.
I don't mean to go back on this, but this crash dashboard working group meeting, that can't get bumped for us. It's just not saying
The
that that's
person
not
who's
as important.
well, I would hate to all the work that she has done to get this meeting.
and other people from.
Yeah, and it's not just TAC members who are involved in this.
That's
So
very true.
yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
This is Michaela. I'm
there she is.
online.
Hey.
I just joined in. Yeah, the only thing is that there's non-TAC members in attendance as well, as we had found a time that could work for the most communities. So that's the only thing that makes it
Perfect.
difficult to just use that time instead.
I
Because then I have
appreciate
to see what
Our
works for
crisis
everyone else as well. And also,
Okay.
Josie has her hand raised.
Oh, Josie, go ahead.
Hi guys, clarifying question for you. So yes, Heather is coming in June, and we're going to be kind of talking about our initial recommendations to council based on things like our 4P meetings, based on your tier 1, tier 2, all the tiers, priority list of projects, as well as our priorities, right? We have worst first. We have a lot of areas that we need to focus on outside of maybe some regional priorities that you guys have listed here. So my question is, are any of the projects, and I'm trying to find my old PDF, Becky, that you've sent me, but are any of the projects listed on the screen right now different from what's on your current tier 1 list? I understand ranking might be different, but are there any?
No.
So
No, there's nothing new.
yeah. So you guys do not, if it's just a
No,
ranking,
that's fine.
if it's just a ranking issue, my personal thought is we view all of these as priorities to the NFR, and that's not going to, we do take it into consideration, of course. We don't want to choose a project that's not a priority to the NFR, but that's not going to be something that will, I guess, change our recommendations. So if that's a concern of making sure your scores are where you want them to be, I don't think you guys need to rush to get that done by council.
Yes, I wasn't under the impression that CDOT needed our help. I think you all have it figured out. But what I was thinking is our elected officials, it seemed to me, and maybe I'm wrong, please say something, seemed to me like the expectation from our elected officials was to bring this list back ahead of or with. And we presented last meeting, and that seemed to be very clear direction we got from our elected officials that they wanted. And whether they'll influence whether we're there or not, or whether we have our list in order or not, I think they can do influence. But I do think that was what they asked from us, was to have it there at that meeting. So I think I agree with you, Josie, that you all have plenty of data and know exactly what you're doing and where your priorities are. I think it was more the elected officials' requests that I was wanting to be responsive to.
Let me ask this: when this is presented to the electeds at their next meeting, who's going to present this? And then are you comfortable when a question gets asked why a project is ranked here or here, which they're going to ask? Are you comfortable saying why TAC scored it that way?
No, I mean, I will be the one presenting it.
Yeah,
I am not
that's
comfortable with what
what
this list says right now.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's not representative of what I think it, based on just anecdotal knowledge of the region.
I will let you know that we have a meeting with the executive committee ahead of council meetings before the agenda packet goes out to talk through the agenda. Normally that happens tomorrow, the day after TAC. It happened last week. And I said, I don't know what this item will look like. It depends on what happens at TAC. It depends on the TAC discussion. So if it does not go in June, it was dependent on the TAC discussion, and I could just let them know. So
I guess anybody that was there at that meeting, did you get the sense that they wanted this to be there the same night? That was anybody there? Anybody watch? If I'm wrong that wasn't the sense that we got, I could go back and rewatch it. But I very much felt like they wanted it to come the same night. And I know it doesn't carry a lot of weight, and it doesn't. But that was definitely the sense I got. And we could say we didn't do our homework, and we could probably get a pass, and nobody would make a big deal about it.
We could say when we got it in, we had questions about some of the data, and we need to workshop through it. That, or we could meet at 9 from 9 to 10 this Friday, or we could do 11:30 to 12:30.
9 to 10.
9 to 10.
Done.
I have to check my availability.
9 to 10 when?
This Friday. I'll send something out when I get back. And it'll be a Teams meeting because I don't want to impact the other.
If you can't make it, by the time you get your feedback and bring that for you. So if anybody can't make it. All right. 4 courses. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Any other questions on the list? All right, I'll go ahead and move us right into our outside partner reports, the NOCO Bike and Ped Collaborative event handout. The regional transit agencies, does anyone have a report out for us with transport or? All right, not seeing anyone there. Mobility updates.
I'll make it quick. Our mobility planner has been working on our coordinated plan. He's been extremely busy doing presentations with boards and stakeholders. He'll be here next month to present what he has so far of the coordinated plan to all of you, answer questions, get input that might be valuable as he's completing the plan. And then he'll be back in October to present what he has and go over that with you before he takes it to council for final approval. And then our Ride NoCo updates quickly. Between January 1st and May 19th, we've had 140 calls. We've had 2,348 website visits. And we're also starting our busy outreach season. So last week we were at the Larimer County Answers on Aging Resource Fair, and we had 109 people stop by our booth to get resources and information. And so that's a quick update on what we're doing on the mobility side.
Thank you. Loveland was one of the stops on the tour for the outreach, and it was a great presentation. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to, in your packet, you'll find the May Planning Council meeting summary draft, mobility committee updates, and the legislative updates report is in your packet as well.
And then in the handouts is also the report from Dina Wojtak that she provides to council. So that's in there as well on the air quality items. So.
Any other topic suggestions for next month? Oh, roundtable, sorry.
Could I ask a question as part of my roundtable?
Yeah.
Do we know when we'll get the next CDOT inactive list or the Region 4 inactive list?
So that is not something that CDOT is doing anymore. It is not something that FHWA division office is doing, and they do it quarterly, I believe, and they send it straight to CDOT and to us. But so far, the projects have not been ours. They're Region 4, but they're not ours.
Quick updates. College and Trilby intersection improvements project will begin or has begun this week. The Trilby Road will be closed at College Avenue in the second week of June. Understanding that there aren't that many ways to get east-west through that part of the region, it will be challenging.
I will just mention County Road 30 is also closed towards the frontage road for the Amazon improvement. So that just if you're finding a alternative routes in there, that those two closures are going to be being problematic.
And we've also advertised the Power Trail underpass at Harmony Road, and bids should be received by I think the first week in June. Thanks.
All right, so the legislative session is over. So we will be getting guidance on what did and did not pass. I have received questions about Senate Bill 2530, which is the motor choice bill, quite a bit, and that has been signed by the governor. So eventually, I'm not sure when, we're waiting on a little bit of guidance from CDOT on what exactly they're looking for, but eventually I'll be reaching out to communities to begin doing those inventories. Don't have a timeline yet, and when I do, I'll let you all know.
Sarah has a couple of things going. We, in the next month or two, will be breaking ground on a new stoplight at County Road 19 and Harmony, County Road 74, whatever you want to call it. Long overdue. It would be nice to have. Just had an accident in that intersection a couple weeks ago. Kid fell asleep and just drove straight through. And I came up on it right after it happened. Lucky he didn't roll or get seriously hurt, but just went straight through the intersection, took out a tree, stop sign, and ended up in the ditch on the other side of the road. So that'll be nice when that's done. We're also doing a warrant study at Ponderosa and 74 as well to see what we need to do in that particular area. So a couple interesting pieces. And then on the active transportation, we are doing a park update on our community park, which is exciting. And then getting ready to do a parks master plan update. So a couple of things that will really play into the work being done at the end of the year.
No update.
And then Paul has his hand up. Paul?
Hey there. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, as Becky mentioned, this is my last TAC meeting. So I just wanted to say that it's been a pleasure working with all of you individually and also as a group. Some of you for the past year, some of you for a decade or more. So I think you're all doing really great things in your communities. It's been a real honor over this past year to be a part of it. And hopefully I'll get to see some of you tomorrow at my farewell get together. And maybe most importantly, it's a very digitally connected world. So, 2,000 kilometers, see what I did there, is really nothing nowadays. So I hope we keep connected and maybe even get to work together again sometime in the future. Of course, Becky, as she mentioned, is going to be stepping in and serving as the acting executive director. So the NPO is going to be in really great hands, and just a really big kudos to her. She's taken on a really big job because she's going to be doing both the executive director job and her normal day job as well. And so just really appreciate all the support that she can pull on from you all as the technical experts in the region. So with that, just thanks to all of you, and I will see you around.
Thank you, Paul, for your work in Northern Colorado. You've made quite the impact, and it's been great to work with you.
Thank you.
And as a reminder, for you guys should have gotten an invitation, but the event is tomorrow from 3:30 to 5 at the NPO offices. It's a kind of come and go thing, so don't feel obligated to stay for the entire. But and then Michaela, is your hand raised?
Yeah.
Okay.
Already kind of discussed, but just a reminder, the Crash Dashboard meeting is on Friday. I sent an agenda late last week. There's some questions in there that I'd love for all of our communities to come prepared with. That would be really great. If there's any community that cannot send anyone, I ask that you just email me the answers to those questions. Maybe before the meeting happens, that would be really, really helpful. Also in the agenda I sent out last week, there's links to the updated version of the Crash Dashboard. If anyone wants to take a look at it before that meeting actually happens, that would be great.
I can provide an update on the mini RFP that we put out for US 34 for the traffic analysis that we're doing on that. There were, I think, 8 different firms interested. So we'll make a selection, I think, by the end of the month. And then that traffic study will be updated between about Crossroads to the north, 402 to the south, and then 34 from Loveland to Greeley. We'll have a draft in the fall, I want to say before Christmas, I'm shooting for before Thanksgiving, we'll have a pretty decent, it's a final draft, and then we'll just make some edits. So technically March of next year we'll have it all, but it's grabbing from the NFRMPO model and then updating more, getting deeper into intersections and modeling more regionally as well through that area. So that's moving forward. We're hoping to have notice to proceed on that before the end of June. And then as far as I-25 and Mulberry, since that's one of the projects mentioned, that is moving forward. We're hoping to potentially start looking at grants, and we've been talking with Larimer and Fort Collins. We'll go through that 1041 process with Fort Collins, and we'll submit for that in the fall. And then that project's moving forward. We're at about a 15% design, but we can definitely move that forward once we actually get construction funds. Otherwise, little projects here and there throughout the NFRMPO region. We give updates on those before your guys' before the board meeting. But yeah, other than that, let me know if you guys need anything.
Yeah. I don't have any. We just bid Madison and Loveland here, so there will be a full closure of Madison and 37th. So if you come sort of the back way to Loveland from Fort Collins, that Madison will be closed. We're going to be doing intersection project there, roundabout, and then a full corridor improvement on Madison between 29th and 37th. So that project should be starting anytime soon. And then if you Taft and 34, you're headed out that way to the west, the intersection is closed on the north side of Taft. So 34 is wide open, but north of 34 on Taft is closed right now as we finish that intersection project. And we should be done hopefully by the end of July with all of that work. So
we're talking about road closures. I can mention that if you're coming in from the south into Windsor, 7th Street's closed, but we're doing a bridge rehab project this summer.
Tis the season. All right. Anyone else online have any roundtable? Well, thank you all. I think we can adjourn.
That stuff behind the tree.